The scream cut the silence of the mansion like a blade. "Mr. Williams, please. She's hurting the boy, Tyler." Michael Williams dropped the contracts he signed in his office and ran toward the desperate voice. He found Miguel Santos, the 12-year-old son of the housekeeper, panting in the hallway, tears dripping through his dark face. "What are you saying?" Michael held the boy's thin shoulders, trying to process his words as he felt his heart to fire. "Your girlfriend, Mrs. Victoria. She puts medicines in Tyler's food. I saw her do it several times when you're not home." Miguel spoke fast, as if he had that secret for a long time, and finally found the courage to reveal him. Michael Williams felt the world turn. At 45, he had built an empire in the technological sector after his wife Sarah's tragic death in a car accident 3 years earlier. His now 8-year-old son Tyler had lost his leg movements exactly 3 months ago. Doctors at Los Angeles' most expensive private clinic spoke of a rare and progressive neurological condition, without clear explanation for sudden appearance. Victoria Morgan, her girlfriend 2 years ago, had appeared in her life as a divine gift. Elegant, graduated in nursing from UCLA, affectionate with Tyler, and apparently too perfect to be true. She had become the boy's dedicated caregiver after convincing Michael to dispense with all other health professionals who took care of the child. "Miguel, this is a very serious accusation," Michael said, controlling his voice so as not to demonstrate the panic that was beginning to take care of him. "Are you absolutely sure of what you saw?" The boy nodded vigorously, his brown eyes shining with a determination that contrasted with his age. "I was cleaning the kitchen when she arrived from the gym. She thought there was no one at home because my mother had left the market. She took a small transparent glass from her pocket and put several drops in Tyler's apple juice." Michael knelt to stay at Miguel's time, his hands tremendously imperceptibly. "Continue. Tell me everything." "When Tyler said the juice had strange and kind of bitter taste, she said it was a new vitamin recommended by the doctor to strengthen her leg muscles." Miguel paused, wiping his nose with his back. "But, Mr. Williams, I know vitamin. My mother gives me every day. Vitamin leaves no child with sleep and difficulty talking like Tyler is later." A chill traveled Michael's spine. In recent months, he had noticed that Tyler was particularly sleepy and confused after the meals Victoria prepared personally, has always attributed this to the effects of mysterious medical condition. "Mr. Williams," Miguel continued, the voice shaking, "there's one more thing. Last night I forgot my math notebook on the living room couch. When I came back to search, I listened to Mrs. Victoria talking on the phone in the garden. She said something about accelerating the process and asked if 3 months was enough time to look natural." Michael's blood completely froze. Tyler's inheritance would receive when he turned 21 was substantial, about $50 million from trust fund established by Sarah. But there was a clause Michael had almost forgotten. If something happened to him, Tyler would inherit everything immediately. And Victoria knew this in detail, as he had shared the documents with her when they started planning the future together. At that moment, Victoria's soft and calculated steps echoed in the marble corridor. "Love, Tyler is calling you from above. It's time for his afternoon snack." His sweet, melodious voice, which once sounded like music to Michael, now carried a sinister tone that made his stomach turn. Miguel instinctively hid behind him, clearly terrified of the woman's closeness. "I'm going up, honey," Michael replied, forcing a smile that expected to look natural. His mind was already working frantically, processing all the small inconsistencies of the last months he had ignored for being blind with love. Then he whispered to Miguel without moving his lips, "Say nothing to anyone yet, not even to your mother. I need evidence before acting." As Victoria moved away with her usual elegance, Michael watched her silhouette disappear in the hallway. For 2 years he had trusted her completely, shared his fears about creating Tyler alone, his financial and emotional vulnerabilities. But if Miguel was right, the woman who slept by her side every night was slowly destroying her son's life to access a fortune. A sudden memory hit him as a punch. 3 weeks before Tyler loses his leg movements, Victoria had insisted to change the will, making her legal tutor of the child if something happened to him. At the time, he interpreted as proof of love and responsibility. Now this memory made him feel nauseous. There, in the silent corridor of his own home, Michael realized that he had been manipulated by a predator who had used his widower pain as a gateway to a much darker plane than he could imagine. But one thing Victoria didn't know: Michael Williams had not become a multimillionaire being naive, and now that her suspicions were awakened, she would find that she had chosen the wrong victim. If this story of manipulation and family betrayal shocked you as much as it shocked Miguel at that time, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because what Michael was about to find out about Victoria would turn his search for justice into the most dangerous investigation of his life, and the method he would use to unmask the truth would reveal a side of him that not even he knew it existed. In the following days, Michael lived a torturous duality. During the day, he kept the facade of the successful entrepreneur, participating in video conferences and making decisions that moved millions of dollars. But every night after Victoria falls asleep beside him, he rose silently and watched Tyler through the ajar door. The boy slept restlessly, murmuring incomprehensible words between low moans. His small legs, which months ago ran through the garden of the Malibu mansion, now lay properties under the Egyptian silk sheets. Michael remembered how Tyler loved to play football in the backyard, his shouts of joy echoing for the property every time he scored an imaginary goal. "You look worried lately," Victoria commented one morning, serving coffee in the gourmet kitchen. She wore a white silk robe that enhanced her perfectly tidy blonde hair, even newly registered. "Perhaps we should hire another expert for Tyler. I know a neurologist in Boston who has impressive results with cases like his." Michael almost choked on the coffee. The naturalness with which she suggested more doctors, more people to deceive, more opinions to manipulate, made him feel nausea. "No, honey, let's keep the current treatment for now." Victoria tilted her head, studying him with those blue eyes that once enchanted him. "Of course, love, you know what is best for Tyler." But there was something in her tone, a calculated coldness that Michael had never noticed before. During that week, he began to pay attention to details he previously ignored. As Victoria always insisted on preparing Tyler's meals, dispensing with the professional cook, how she offered to take him to her little by little medical commitments they still had, as meticulously controlled every aspect of the boy's routine, creating an isolated bubble where only she had full access. Miguel, in turn, was visibly nervous around the house. Michael watched him discreetly. The boy avoided crossing Victoria in the corridors, and when they were inevitably, he kept his eyes low and responded with educated monosyllables. It was obvious that he carried a huge weight on his lean shoulders. "Mr. Williams," Miguel whispered one afternoon when Victoria had left for her Pilates classes, "can I show something?" They climbed to Tyler's room where the boy rested after lunch. Miguel carefully opened the bedside drawer and removed a small school notebook. "Tyler asked me to keep it. He said it was important." Miguel flipped his pages until he found what he was looking for. "Look here, sir." Michael felt the blood freezing. In children's and shaking, Tyler had written, "Victoria gives me bad medicine. I can't move my legs later. I'm afraid of her, but I can't tell Daddy because she said something bad will happen to Dad if I tell." The next pages contained disturbing designs. A boy in bed with tears in his eyes, a tall woman with long hair holding a glass, and several figures representing the bad medicine, with sad faces drawn in the bottles. "My God," Michael murmured, his hands shaking when turning his pages. "How long has Tyler been documenting this?" "Since she started getting sick, sir. He told me he wanted to have proof if something happened to him." Miguel paused, wiping his eyes. "Mr. Williams, last night I heard Tyler crying in the room. When I asked what was, he said Victoria said that if he told the medicine, you were going to have an accident just like what happened to his mother." Michael felt as if he had punched his stomach. Victoria knew intimate details about Sarah's death, the car accident that had officially been caused by fatigue but has always left doubts in Michael's mind. She knew her insecure niece about that night, his questions about whether he could have prevented the tragedy in some way. "Miguel, I need you to help me with something very important," Michael said, closing the notebook carefully. "I'm going to install some cameras around the house and small that she won't notice, but I need you to keep acting normally, as if nothing has changed." The boy nodded severely. "I'll help, sir. Tyler is like a brother to me." That night, after Victoria falls asleep, Michael worked until high hours installing micro-cameras at strategic points of the house. One in the kitchen, directed to the area where Victoria prepared Tyler's meals. Another in the boys' room, hidden between the books. A third in her office, camouflaged among decoration products. But it went to install the camera at Victoria's office that Michael made a discovery that changed everything. In a locked drawer he managed to open with a master key, he found a folder like medical documentation, Tyler Williams. Inside there were counterfeit doctors, veterinary medicines purchased with false identities, and something that made your blood freeze completely, Tyler photographs taken at angles that emphasized their apparent fragility, along with condition progression and deterioration schedule. At the bottom of the drawer, a second folder contained newspaper clippings on other cases. Children from rich families who had developed mysterious medical conditions. Some had died in suspicious circumstances. In all reports, a nurse or caregiver near the family was mentioned briefly, always with different names, but Michael recognized the pattern in photographs. All were Victoria, with slightly modified hair and appearances. There alone in the dark office, Michael understood that he was not just dealing with an ambitious woman. Victoria was a professional predator, part of a much larger and more sinistro scheme than he could imagine. What Michael didn't know was that while he discovered the truth about Victoria, she had already realized her behavior change, and the plan she was making for him would be much more definitive than the slow methods she was using with Tyler. As he carefully kept the evidence, Michael made a decision that would change the course of everything. It would not just be another victim in the macabre Victoria collection. He would use each feature, every connection, and every dollar of his fortune to make sure she paid for everything she had done, not just Tyler but to all the other children whose lives she had destroyed. What Victoria didn't know yet was that she had chosen the wrong victim this time. Michael Williams had built his empire being 3 steps ahead of any opponent, and now all this strategic intelligence would be directed to a single mission: to unmask and destroy the woman who almost managed to steal her son's life. Michael knew he couldn't face Victoria alone. For 3 decades building their technological empire, he had learned that the most important battles require the best allies, and this would be the battle of your life. The next morning he called James McCarthy, a former LAPD detective who now driving a private investigation agency specializing in high-profile cases. They had known each other for 15 years since Michael had hired his company to investigate corporate leaks. "James, I need you here today." "It's about Tyler," said Michael bluntly. "I'll be there in an hour," said James, capturing the urgency in his friend's voice. When James arrived at the mansion, Michael led him directly to his private office, far from anywhere where Victoria could hear them. He put on the table the evidence he had collected: Tyler's notebook, the photographs of the counterfeit folders, and the images of the cameras he had already managed to capture. James examined everything meticulously, his expression getting darker with each discovery. "Michael, this is not just children's abuse. It's attempted, qualified homicide. And from what I'm seeing here," he pointed to the newspaper clippings, "she did it before." "How many other children, James? How many other families?" Michael felt nauseous when thinking about the extent of horror. "Let's find out. But first, we need to protect Tyler. And you too. If she suspects we find out, you can speed up any plan you have for both of you." That afternoon, while Victoria was in her weekly spa session, Michael and James implemented a more sophisticated surveillance system. High-sensitivity microphones were installed at strategic points, and James brought equipment that would allow remote monitoring 24 hours a day. "From now on, every word she says will be recorded," explained James, configuring the devices. "And I have 2 agents discreetly positioned on the outskirts of the property." Miguel became an invaluable ally in this process. The Filipino boy, showing impressive courage to his age, offered to discreetly document Victoria's activities with a small recording device that James had provided. "Mr. Williams," said Miguel on an afternoon when Victoria had gone out for a fictional medical appointment, "I found something in her room." He led Michael to Victoria's closet and, carefully moving some boxes of shoes, revealed a small digital safe hidden behind the longer dresses. "She opens it every night before bed. Whenever you are working in the office." Michael photographed the safe and sent the image to James, who promised to get a specialist to decipher it without leaving traces. During that week, the recordings revealed increasingly disturbing telephone conversations. Victoria spoke regularly to someone identified only as Dr. K about accelerating the schedule and preparing the final documentation. "The little boy is weaker now," she whispered during one of these conversations. "I think 2 weeks will be enough to look natural." "And the father?" "Well, he's so obsessed with business that he wouldn't even realize if Tyler disappeared for days." Michael, listening to these recordings in James's office, felt a fury he had never experienced in his life, his hands shaking the fists, but James reassured him. "Calm down, Michael. Anger won't help us now. We need to be cold and calculating. It is completely underestimating our ability to reaction, and that's our biggest advantage." The point of turning came when Miguel managed to record a complete conversation between Victoria and Tyler. The boy, weak and confused by the effects of medicines, tried to resist taking the special medicine she insisted on managing. "Tyler, dear, you know that Dad is very upset when you don't take your medicines," Victoria said in a seemingly sweet voice, but loaded with veiled threat. "And you don't want something bad to happen to him, do you? How did you happen to your mom?" "She's dead because she didn't take the right drugs," Tyler murmured, clearly repeating something that had been said to him several times. "You said that if I don't take mine, Daddy can get sick too." "Exactly, Angel. So you need to be an obedient boy." Michael had to leave the room when he heard this recording. The psychological manipulation that Victoria exercised over her son was even more cruel than physical poisoning. She had turned Sarah's memory into a control tool, making Tyler believe she was responsible for her father's safety. "She is much more dangerous than we imagined," said James when Michael returned. "It's not just poisoning Tyler physically. It's destroying him psychologically as well. It was at this moment that Michael made the final decision. It was not enough just to expose Victoria. It was necessary to ensure that she paid for every second of suffering that had caused Tyler, and could never do this with another child again. James, I want you to prepare a complete operation. Irrefutable evidence, witnesses, independent medical documentation. When we confront Victoria, I want her to realize that there is no possible way out. What about timing? Michael looked out the window where Tyler played in the garden under Victoria's seemingly loving supervision. The scene that once brought him peace now filled him with cold determination. She mentioned 2 weeks. Let's act on one. What Victoria did not know was that her excessive confidence and complete underestimation of Michael would be exactly the elements that would guarantee her fall. Each arrogant word it pronounced, every veiled threat to Tyler, each calculated movement was being documented by a surveillance network that it didn't even dream of existing. While planning what he believed was the final blow to his predatory career, Victoria was actually meticulously building her own sentence, and Michael Williams, who she saw only another rich and naive victim, was about to show why she had become one of the most feared businessmen in Silicon Valley. The revenge he prepared would not only be personal, it would be total, devastating, and permanent. And this time, it would be Victoria who would discover too late who had chosen the wrong victim. The trap was armed. Michael had agreed with James that the operation would take place on a Thursday afternoon, when Victoria used to manage what she called Tyler's special medication after the snack. Everything ready, confirmed James for the communicator. Emergency medical team positioned to 2 blocks. Officer of the Smallers department in standby, and Prosecutor Anderson waiting for his connection. Michael felt his heart trigger when he heard Victoria's family steps climbing the stairs. She carried a tray with Tyler's snack and that sweet smile that now made him feel nauseous. Love, could you help me in the office? I need to review some urgent contracts, said Michael, intercepting her into the hall. Of course, dear, but let me snack to Tyler first. You know how annoyed it is when it is late. Michael forced a smile. You're right, I will advance the documents. In the next 15 minutes, the cameras captured everything in high definition. Victoria entering Tyler's room, removing a small vial from her pocket, carefully measuring 5 drops in the apple juice, stirring slowly to dissolve the transparent liquid. Here is your snack, Angel. Your voice sounded melodious through the microphones. Drink all the juice, are you? Tyler, visibly reluctant, held the glass with trembling hands. It has a bad taste again, Victoria. Can't I just take it normal? Tyler, do you want Dad to be upset? The change in her tone was instantaneous, affectionate to threatening. Remember what happened to her mom when she stopped taking her medicines? The boy started to cry softly. No, please, I'll take it. It was at this moment that Michael entered the room, accompanied by James and 2 uniformed officers. Victoria froze, the bottle still visible in her hand. Go away from my son, Michael said in a cold voice. Victoria tried to keep the composure. Michael, what does that mean? Tyler needs to take your medication. James approached, showing a digital recorder. Mrs. Morgan, everything you said and has done in recent weeks has been recorded, even her telephone conversations with her fellow Dr. Kellerman. Victoria's face completely paled. You can't prove anything. I'm a certified nurse. I was just taking care of the child. How do you explain this then? Michael showed the bottle that had been confiscated. Veterinary succinylcholine, the same substance found in Tyler's blood, according to the independent exams we did. Michael knelt next to Tyler, who watched everything with wide eyes. Son, you don't have to pretend anymore. You can tell me everything now. With an impressive courage for her 8 years, Tyler said clearly, Dad, she gave me bad medicine every day. He said that if I told you were going to die like Mom, and that if I didn't take it, she would make you have an accident. Victoria tried to run toward the door, but the officers intercepted her immediately. You don't understand. This money is not just for me. There are very powerful people involved. We know, said James calmly. Dr. Marcus Kellerman has been arrested in his office for 2 hours. We found the records of all the children you have poisoned in the last 5 years. 8 families, Mrs. Morgan. 8 innocent children. As they put the handcuffs in Victoria, she turned to Michael with eyes full of hate. Do you think this ends here? Don't imagine how deep it goes. Actually, I imagine, Michael replied, showing his phone. I just received confirmation that the FBI executed simultaneous warrants in 3 states. Its caregivers was completely dismantled. Victoria collapsed completely. Tears of despair ran down his face while the reality of the situation hit her. Please, Michael, I really cared about you. At first it wasn't just the money. You cared so much, Michael said in a cold voice, who was willing to kill my son to get his inheritance. Miguel, who watched everything from the corridor, shyly approached Tyler. I'm proud of you, friend. You were very brave." While Victoria was escorted out of the mansion, James handed Michael a complete report. "The evidence we collect are irrefutable. Video recordings, audio, toxicological analysis, financial records, intercepted communications. She will take life imprisonment, with no possibility of parole." "And Tyler?" Michael asked, watching his son that he finally smiled genuinely after months. "Doctors are categorical. With proper detox treatment, it must completely recover leg mobility in a few weeks. Damage is not permanent." That afternoon, for the first time in months, Michael sat on Tyler's bed to read a story before bed. The boy was visibly more alert, already showing signs of improvement after just a few hours without toxic medication. "Dad," Tyler said softly, "will you never let anyone bad take care of me again?" "Never again, son. And you know one thing? From now on, I'll be here for you every day." What Victoria had completely underestimated was that her arrogance and greed would lead her to attack one of the most conned people and determined of the Silicon Valley. Michael Williams was not just rich. He had resources, contacts, and strategic intelligence to orchestrate an operation that would not leave a single stone without turning. While she was sued for attempted murder, criminal association, and a dozen other federal accusations, Michael began a foundation to protect children from predators like her, because he found that the real victory was not only in defeating Victoria, but to ensure that no other family went through hell that almost destroyed Tyler's life. 6 months later, Michael was sitting in his renewed office, watching Tyler run through the garden through the large panoramic window. The boy had completely recovered his leg mobility and now played football with Miguel, his shouts of joy echoing the property as a renewed life symphony. The transformation had been complete. Medical examinations confirmed that there was no trace of toxic substances in the Tyler body. Most importantly, sessions with the children's psychologist were helping the boy overcome the psychological trauma of the manipulation that Victoria had exercised over him for months. "Dad, Miguel said I can be a goalkeeper today," Tyler shouted from the window with a radiant smile that Michael hadn't seen for almost a year. "Of course, champion. Just don't hurt your mother's garden," Michael replied, feeling a sweet twinge when mentioning Sarah. For the first time since her death, he could talk about his wife without the pain being overwhelming. At the table in front of him, piles of correspondence brought updates about the case that had changed their lives. Victoria Morgan had been sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. Dr. Marcus Kellerman had received 35 years for his participation in the criminal network. Another 7 accomplices were sentenced to penalties ranging from 15 to 25 years. But what was most proud of Michael was the letter that held in his hands. It was from Amanda Foster, mother of one of Victoria's earlier victims, a 7-year-old girl who had been poisoned in Denver 2 years earlier. The family had sued the hospital where Victoria worked, but without concrete evidence the case was filed. "Mr. Williams," said the letter, "when we learned that the Lord had managed to expose Victoria and the whole network, we could finally reopen our daughter Emma's case. With the evidence that the Lord collected, we got not only criminal justice, but also compensation that will allow us to fund Emma's rehabilitation treatment for the coming years." Michael put the letter on the table and smiled. The Tyler Williams Foundation for Child Protection, which it had established with $10 million, was already operating in 5 states, offering resources to identify and process similar cases of systematic abuse. Miguel knocked lightly on the door and entered, carrying a school paste. "Mr. Williams, I wanted to show you my essay to school. It's about heroes." Michael took the leaves and read the title. "My hero does not use cover, as the courage to tell the truth saved my best friend." "Miguel," said Michael, feeling his eyes mirrored, "you know that the true hero in this story is you, isn't it?" The Filipino boy smiled shyly. "I just told the truth, Lord. My mother has always taught me that protecting friends is more important than being afraid." At that moment, Teresa Santos, Miguel's mother, appeared at the door. "Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Williams, but a call has arrived. It's from the FBI. They say they found more victims of the network and want their help to locate families." Michael nodded severely. In recent months, it had become an unofficial FBI consultant in cases involving predators aimed at rich families through infiltrated caregivers. His personal experience and financial resources made him particularly effective in this type of investigation. "Say I return the call in 5 minutes," he replied. When he was alone, Michael took Sarah's photo, who always kept on the table. "We got it, love. Tyler is safe, and now we can protect other children as well." Through the window, Tyler noted to score a spectacular goal against Miguel, who dramatically threw himself on the floor pretending to be defeated. The two laughed loudly, a friendship forged in adversity and solidified in victory. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was James McCarthy with updates on new case developments. "Michael, The FBI tracked the network to an international operation. They found evidence of similar cases in Europe and Asia. You have created a chain reaction that is saving children around the world. After off, Michael reflected on how a moment of pure terror, when Miguel had run to his office screaming on Victor IA, he had become the greatest victory of his life, not only financial or professional, but moral. Victoria had calculated that a rich father and a loan would be an easy victim. He had completely underestimated the power of paternal love combined with unlimited resources and a network of loyal allies. His mistake was believing that wealth meant weakness, and that pain meant vulnerability. But Michael had learned something equally important, that his true wealth had never been the money. It was Tyler running free through the garden, Miguel having the courage to tell the truth, Teresa preparing family dinners, and James remaining loyal when everything seemed lost. While the sun was overwhelmed, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Michael made a final decision. It would reduce its business activities in half to devote more time to the foundation and, especially, to be present in Tyler's life in a way that had not achieved in the early years after Sarah's death. Victoria Morgan had tried to destroy her family to access an inheritance. Ironically, his actions led Michael to discover the true heritage he could leave to Tyler, a safer world, a more present father, and the certainty that justice, when exercised with intelligence and determination, always prevails over calculated evil. That night, when Tyler asked Michael to read a story before bed, he chose a book that talked about dragons who disguised themselves from kind people to deceive families. At the end of the reading, Tyler commented sleepy, "Dad, it's good to know that there are brave people like you to defeat real dragons." Michael kissed her son's forehead and whispered, "And brave people like Miguel to warn us when the dragons arrive." Michael Williams's greatest revenge was not to see Victoria in prison, but to build something she could never destroy, a stronger family, a bigger cause than he himself, and the certainty that true love always finds a way to protect those who matter most. If this story of courage and justice has touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because sometimes true heroes are brave children who speak the truth when adults are too blind to see the danger right in front of them. And the best revenge against those who try to destroy our family is to build something even stronger about the rubble of their lies.